Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. My name is Josh Lindell. I'm a grad student studying Neanderthal teeth, and I'm here with...
I'm Kim Hoff. I'm a bioarchaeologist. I study human disease and evolution.
And I'm Ross Barnett, a paleogeneticist looking at Pleistocene felids.
And today we're reviewing a movie called Neander-Jin, Return of the Neanderthal Man from 2011. I'm sorry about this one. This was my suggestion. I don't know where I heard about this movie, and I'd never seen it before. And I think this also says something about this isn't a business, but like business sense. Like start the podcast on the most obscure topic that nobody's going to listen to, and then choose the most obscure movies that nobody's ever seen to review. And then recommend that they don't watch them.
It has high ratings, though.
From who?
It has a high rating on IMDb, but I don't think it has high ratings anywhere else. I think the director must have got all his friends to rate it on IMDb, because it has almost no ratings anywhere.
Jeez. Yeah, I noticed that on the kind of YouTube thumbnail, it says award-winning with like those canned
they kept saying
laurels.
That. Yeah.
But, it doesn't say what award.
Yeah, that's true.
Usually if it's an actual award, they would put the name, but...
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
I think they submitted it to as many festivals as possible, because I noticed one of the festivals where they got an award was called Moondance Film Festival.
Right.
Yeah, thinking we wouldn't recognize that that's a switch.
I honestly don't know that I followed it enough to explain it. The way that I would describe it would be, it's like you enter someone's fever dream about a Neanderthal man being found, and it somehow, I don't know, is both racist, sexist, discriminatory against Neanderthals again. I don't know, but I feel like it was all of that was on purpose though too, because it was a comedy.
I don't know. It's hard to see, what was done on purpose, what was just absolutely rubbish.
I don't understand. And
I don't think it is. It's not really explainable, is it? It's like
no.
My kind of take on it was that magically by banging two spear points together, a Neanderthal man appears in the year 2011, manages to somehow become important to some film producers who want him. He somehow manages to become the love interest of a vegetarian human rights lawyer, and all sorts of hijinks happen, except none of them are funny or make any sense.
Yeah, he wins like Eurostar or whatever and becomes rich, and then there's this downfall because he becomes too rich and famous that people start hating him, and then he has to disappear again. And then all throughout that, there's also just random scenes with people go on for so long that have nothing to do with the movie or the plot line or anything, like the guy with the watch. It's like, there's so much that had nothing to do with, I don't know. I don't get it. I didn't hate it, though.
Oh, I hated it. I watched it at 1.5 times speed because it was just aggravating me so much that I just had to get through it.
See, I had to keep going back because I was like, I had to have missed something. And then I went back and I was like, no, I didn't. Like, that was a scene jump.
It was very weird. I mean, it does absolutely nothing for the kind of stereotype of Germans as being a humorless bunch, because I think it's German produced, but it was just, I didn't even crack a smile all the way through. And like Kim says, there's like blatant racism and sexism that's just there, and you're like, whoa, is that supposed to be funny? Because it's not.
No, it's terrible. And it wasn't even delivered in a way where, like, how The Office sometimes it says terrible jokes, but it's delivered in a way that the joke is about how terrible it is, not that what they said. Like, it's a social commentary on racism rather than the racist joke. It wasn't even delivered like that. It was just bad. And the acting was all terrible, and, like, you hate to rip up an independent film for bad acting, but it's like they didn't even try. Like, the lead woman, did she even try to act at all? And it was just the weirdest thing.
Yeah. I also wonder if there's like a whole bunch of subtext that you would only get if you were German. Like there's a weird guy who was in charge of the water purification plant which is where the Neanderthal arrives, who
Yeah.
is at home speaking into an old-fashioned microphone with his family and has dinner with them and has a big speech
know.
about German reunification
Oh my god,
and how
that
it was
so
the
weird.
anniversary of that. Yeah.
And like that never came up again. Like that was never part of the plot line. That was never a thing.
Yeah.
It did come up slightly when you met Armagnac again, when he was in the hot tub with two women. He was tricking into thinking he was a film producer. And he told them, it's a holiday, let's celebrate. And then that was the last point where the German reunification day mattered to the plot. I guess it didn't matter to the plot, but they called back to it.
But was Armagnac, was he not actually a producer, or was he just a con man?
I think he was just a con man.
He was a
Okay.
con man.
And he had an Italian sidekick for some reason who did nothing.
That sold watches from the back of his car.
The cast was strangely international.
Yes. Yeah, the Italian guy only drove in the car, sold watches, and then at the end pretended to be a bordello girl, whatever. Bordello. What's that word? Bordello?
Bordello?
Is that a real word? I'm very tired.
You know it's a real
I'm very
word.
tired. No, you know when you say something that doesn't sound right? Bordello? Yes, bordello. Yeah, when they were dressed up as that to get him into a compromising situation so that he could get... I don't know what their point was for that. It's like they wanted to hurt him, but then they wanted to make money off of him.
I think they were trying to entice him away from the anthropologist and the vegetarian lawyer so that they could sell him. And the way they did that was by Armagnac dressing up as a as a woman to entice the guy away. And then they took him to a brothel, I think.
And then got compromising photos in the media because he was a star at this point, and then that downfalled his career because apparently this movie was also very conservative. Like, it was strangely conservative. That one woman was like, when, for some reason, so when they were watching Star Search in the Neanderthal 1, and she was talking, her and her friend were talking, and for some reason her reaction to her watching the show, her friend was like, oh my god, you had sex with him. And she was like, no, I didn't. And then she's, nobody has sex anymore. We only just talk about it. You're not supposed to go all the way. And it was so strange.
It was nuts. Yeah, it was.
And then
really
her
weird.
dad, when at the end, when she's talking to her dad, and she's like, Father, have you ever had sex with a woman besides Mother? And then he doesn't answer. She's like, I'll take that as a yes. And then walks away all disappointed. And this is like a 30, 40-year-old woman. It was nuts.
Well, according to the description, she's supposed to be 23.
Oh. Okay.
And at the end, she's pregnant, it seems, like with
the Neander
with his baby.
Yeah.
No, it really, yeah.
I really honestly don't know how to explain it.
I tried to make sense, and then I gave up, and then I just watched it at like double speed.
We haven't even explained the plot yet.
Well, I mean, there isn't really one. It's just Neanderthal appears by magic, then, is found, everyone wants a piece of him, he becomes famous, then he becomes not famous. Somehow he gets a woman pregnant, he causes the people that he first appeared to get locked up in a psych ward. Then he goes back to the water purification plant where he first appeared and uses the Neanderthal magic to go back in time.
And like when on the psych ward, when the guy was finally released, the German guy that did the speech at the beginning comes and gets him out somehow.
Yeah.
And then the doctors allow him to go, and then he just starts singing randomly as he's pushing him. The German guy just starts singing randomly for no reason.
I thought it was a German national anthem, perhaps.
Okay, but like, what role did that play in that situation? And then the doctors are watching him kind of perplexed, and then they just kind of shrug and walk away. And then one doctor slaps the female doctor on the butt for no reason.
Yeah. And there's an obsession with gummy bears throughout the film as well.
Well, that's how you tame the Neanderthal Man, is through the gummy bears. And then the weirdest thing. Okay, sorry. Now I'm just ranting. But the weirdest scene, okay, was when the con man producer guy goes to some, like, where he's going to get the money for his movie. And the guy's like, no, I'm not going to give you the money for your movie, and instead I'm going to punish you. And then he's like, oh yeah, what are you going to do to me? And then there's this, I can only assume it's Japanese man because of the statement. And then the guy was like, what are you going to do to me? And he was like, I'm going to eat your penis like sashimi with
eat your balls,
rice,
I think
but
is what he
no
said.
wasabi. Your balls, yeah. With rice, but no wasabi. And then he attacks him, and then that's the last we hear about him. And then later on, that guy's perfectly fine. Like, his balls weren't eaten by, like, sashimi. It was so weird.
Was that actually the weirdest part, though? Or were there other equally weird parts that just...
That's what, as I'm watching this, I'm like, everything that happens, like, you have to remember that. And then the next thing I'd be like, you have to remember, like, this is all so strange.
There's also a weird bit in the psych ward where the guy who's been locked up because he claims he saw the Neanderthal Man first of all, and is ranting about how he fed him gummy bears, and then the sympathetic female doctor somehow gets gummy bears and like pours them into his mouth.
I know.
And then she gets in trouble for that. It's just, it is like a fever
As
dream.
she should. She's like working in this hospital, and she's like, if you stop talking about your problems, I'll give you gummy bears. Like, that's her way of treating him.
Get out of my hospital.
See, the whole thing about that psych ward subplot is like, if this were like a normal movie with a real plot, that would be like, he's the guy who first saw the Neanderthal Man, so he has the real information, but he gets locked up, so like, he's got to get out to tell everybody that he really is a Neanderthal Man. Except that everybody immediately knows he's a Neanderthal Man as soon as they see him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they see a guy who is just a human with dreadlocks.
Yeah.
And a really shitty... What are the clothes even? It looks like he's got like a flour sack made of felt or something.
Well, even
doesn't make any sense.
It was all... We could go in the inaccuracies of the costume. It was absolutely terrible.
But it's also a really, really kind of inconsistent... Like, sometimes his hair is long with dreadlocks, and then he gets it cut, and then his dreadlocks appear again.
Well, because the anthropologist said he had to have a wig if he was going to go on Star Search.
Oh, I missed that.
And then he just wears the wig for the rest of the movie.
The wig that looks exactly like his hair at the beginning. Right, I missed that bit.
Yes.
Obviously an important plot point.
And then the other thing, too, is that the man was locked up because he said he saw a Neanderthal Man. They're like, there's no way he saw a Neanderthal Man, so that we'll lock him up. And then this Neanderthal Man goes on and wins Star Search and becomes internationally famous and rich because he's a Neanderthal Man. And at no point do they release this guy. Like, they're just... like,
yeah.
They're constantly sort of setting up plot points that never pay off like that, because like you'd expect, he's locked up, so he's going to get out and release the real story and he's going to be vindicated, but that doesn't happen.
No.
He finally gets out through some sort of court order, and then his boss is like, so you're never going to talk about the Neanderthal Man again, right? And he's like, nope, I'm going to do my job until I die.
Yeah.
And eat gummy bears. And then he
gets the girl at the end, and then gets to be stepdad to the Neanderthal Man. Boy, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. There are some quite funny quotes, though, that I didn't smile at, but I noted them down. Like the woman says, Barbara, I think the character's name is, she says, "Men are people, just like women."
Yeah,
at some point, which is quite
Men are
good.
People too. It doesn't pass the Bechdel test. I was waiting for it to, but every time that those two females were alone talking, they talked about men every time.
Yeah. All we have are stones and memories. That's quite a good quote.
I actually did laugh at the scenes with the romantic lead and the Neanderthal. There were, the story on Netflix or on YouTube where I watched it. On the title, it actually calls it a romantic comedy, which is one of the things it was trying to do, but it just didn't do very well. So, this young environmental engineering student or something like that. We keep calling her a different thing because I'm not sure exactly what she does.
I thought she was because she was studying the bones too, right? I don't know. I thought she was a scientist.
She does whatever the movie needs her to do, I think.
She's a modern woman who is an anthropology lawyer, environmental engineer.
Right.
Yes. There's this whole subplot where she's falling in love with the Neanderthal, and on some of the descriptions online, they talk about this like this is some sort of a tongue-in-cheek subversion of romantic comedies, but it's really more like an incel tried to write a comedy where she's opining about how she can't find a real man and people have so far removed from the natural world. She wants to find an innocent natural man who's still in touch with nature. And there's a scene where she's monologuing she was talking to her father, and then he leaves the table and she's just sitting there at the table drinking her coffee, monologuing about what kind of perfect, innocent, natural man she wants. And then the Neanderthal man appears in the background outside the window and like brutally murders a chicken and eats it raw while she's talking about this. And I thought that was funny. I laughed at that scene. I feel like that's what the movie was going for. Like, we should say the movie, I think, is definitely trying to be a B movie. Like, it's not trying to be a good movie.
Mhm.
It's trying to be a cheesy, stupid, funny movie. And it's just that it's mostly just not funny.
Well, mission accomplished, apart from the funny, yeah. If it's trying to be a stupid B movie, then absolutely mission accomplished.
I wouldn't even put it as B movie, man.
Yeah,
Was,
a Z movie.
you know what the worst thing is, though? It's not on YouTube here.
Oh, right.
I couldn't find it free anywhere. I paid $4 to watch that.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
That's $4 you're never going to get back.
No.
Man. I'm devastated for you.
Yeah,
That's
I was pretty
terrible.
devastated. About 10 minutes in, I was like, no.
Oh, man.
So should we go into, I guess, the inaccuracies of the Neanderthals? So I'm just going to say outright that they got nothing correct. Not even the stone tools, I don't think. And the costume was terrible. You could see, you know, when you have fake hair and you see the line of the sticker that you're supposed to cover, that was at the top of his eyebrows. Like, you could see the sticker. And just, he had weird, hairy arms and hands like an ape, right? And they kept calling him an ape. And they, the anthropologist said he has the brain size of an amoeba. And Neanderthals have larger cranial capacities than us, on average.
Yeah.
There'd be no reason to assume that he would act like an ape or make those monkey sounds like they had him like, "Ooh, ah, ah," at the beginning. And he never stood upright. And, it was just ridiculous.
Yep, all of that.
So I feel like that's about all we can really say about science in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys look into the director or any background for this movie?
No.
No. He really didn't want to spend much more time on it, like us. Okay, Josh, you must have.
Yeah, is there...
Well, there's not a lot of information about this movie, so most of what I get is the same press release that IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and Letterboxd, they all have the same description, which it was clearly put out by the director.
The award-winning romantic comedy.
The director is Florian Steinbiss, who is the romantic lead's father in the film. He's the director and the writer. And it was co-written by the American anthropologist in the film. And this was Florian Steinbiss's directorial debut. And he's obviously an old man in the movie. He must be in his late 50s or 60s, because he's the father of the 20-something anthropological lawyer environmentalist. And it seems like he grew up in or adjacent to the Neander Valley and spent a lot of time in his childhood going to the Neanderthal Museum. So it seems to be some sort of labor of love for him, going all the way back to his childhood. And yet somehow he got everything about Neanderthals wrong.
I was just going to say, like, so he paid no attention to the museum whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not a great advert for the museum at all.
But there is a very short scene that takes place inside a museum. Did you guys notice if that's actually the Neanderthal Museum in Germany?
I think it is, or that was definitely the impression I got. You saw the outside, saying the Neanderthal Museum, I think, and it had that famous kind of reconstruction of a Neanderthal holding a spear, which I think is at the Neanderthal Museum. So it would make sense.
So, I mean, they must have got permission to film there, or possibly did it
or possibly not.
Very quickly. The scene is about 20 seconds, so maybe they just got in and shot the film and then ran away.
Yeah.
I guess that's the background. It's his first film pretty late in life, and he's never done anything else. Possibly his only film he's ever done. A lot of the actors in this have like 2 or 3 credits on IMDb, so explains the acting.
So I've just been furiously Googling, and apparently the director has one other film, which is called Propaganda Swing, Dr. Goebbels' jazz orchestra.
Oh my god.
Is interesting. And that came
Yeah.
out after Neander-Jin. But yeah, also on IMDb, yeah, lots of the actors aren't very good, as you guys said. The one guy I thought was quite good was Armagnac. He was at
Yeah,
least
Yeah.
he was the
trying to be good in it, and he's apparently he's been in quite a few things according to IMDb, including the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is actually a pretty good
That's
film,
a really good movie.
or at least
Mm-hmm.
which I thought.
He was the best actor.
So yeah, Armagnac, and also the water plant worker that ends up in the psych ward. He was quite good as well, I thought.
Yeah, that's true. Is this going to be our shortest episode just because there's nothing to say?
I mean, I feel like we could keep talking about things. Maybe we can break down a few scenes and see how we understood them, since so many of them made no sense at all. Right at the beginning, when we first meet Armagnac, it's this Australian or South African producer. Was his accent Australian or?
I thought he was Australian, but it was hard to tell.
So he and this German guy are flying by helicopter to some fancy place to meet with Armagnac, who's going to pitch them an idea for Germany to win the Ultimate World Star reality show, which is so vague that we never actually see what the actual concept of the show is. It's just some talent show, I guess. But what Armagnac pitches them is he gives them photos of Hitler on the table, and they don't say Hitler, but he's like, here's your guy. He's going to have no problem winning over France and Luxembourg and Poland. But the Americans and the British might put up some resistance. And you're like, he said something about he believes in reincarnation. He's actually very sensitive and talented. And you're like, oh, is the premise that this guy can bring people from the past into the present? Because that would explain where the Neanderthal comes from.
Yeah.
But no, the Neanderthal just does his own magic and comes to the present for no apparent reason. And it doesn't even seem like he knew what he was doing. He was doing some magic ritual and then came to the present. So what was this Hitler? Was this guy, did he really think he really had Hitler? Or did he have was he pitching him like a Hitler impersonator for Germany to win the Ultimate World Star competition? Because that wouldn't have won.
You'd hope. But, given the current political climate, who knows? Yeah, it was weird. I like you, I thought they were kind of pitching it as a sort of Boys from Brazil kind of style thing, that they had the kind of technology to clone Hitler, essentially, or Neanderthals or whatever. But yeah, it was just weird. I mean, I don't know, it kind of makes more sense now you're saying that the guy that produced and wrote and directed was, I mean, let's be, straightforward here. He's a very odd-looking, white-haired gentleman who, you can imagine that some of the weirdness in this film comes directly from his attitudes to women, foreigners, the past, whatever. I mean, it's a boomer fever dream, essentially, for some of it. It's it's an old man's, why are kids doing things different today? This is not how it should be, kind of stuff. Yeah, slightly worrying. I didn't understand that bit at all.
But I also see him being very probably similar to his real personality being very similar to the character he played. Like, just kind of pompous, he's super cool and trendy and wears the cool shirts and, yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of scenes I just didn't understand. The first scene was one of them.
Yeah, it's one of those scenes that doesn't actually have any point or lead to anything important in the strands of the movie. It's just...
Except for it just sets up that this guy needs a movie. And that he's broke.
It needs money.
But the entire movie could have not had that character at all, too.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah,
yes,
he
he's
doesn't
the one
do
that
anything.
at the end, he gets the Neanderthal who's never even given a name, he gets him into the bordello to ruin his career. But, I mean, it could have easily had any other reason to get him in there. So,
yeah.
He actually, none of that played any role in the movie plot.
No.
Maybe we can talk about the name of this movie, Neander-Jin. Did this make any sense to either of you?
No, I thought we were going to watch a movie that was going to be about a Neanderthal wizard
Yeah.
or genie, a genie. Like I thought it was going to be Neanderthal genie, and that would have
Made
better.
more sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never even explained or alluded to why the film would be called Neander-Jin. He's not a genie or a jinn or whatever. He's supposed to be a real Neanderthal who comes the future through stone magic. And the magic is bagging two stones together. I mean, how the present day isn't full of Neanderthals if that's all it takes to do time travel magic, I don't know.
Yeah. Every time they go to make a tool,
There is a scene where he explains the name, but it in no way explains the name to me. So I think that this word is coming from Japanese because this director seems to have this weird obsession with Japanese. He's always drinking green tea, and he's got Japanese posters on the wall in their house for some reason. And they've got that weird scene with the Japanese henchman that bites the guy's balls for some reason.
and he makes that statement about drinking his Japanese tea. Like he says that over and over. I'm drinking my Japanese tea.
Yeah, he's obsessed with his Japanese tea. So in the scene where she's teaching the Neanderthal man to say Neanderthal, her father, the director, says, "Jin, only a Jin is a Jin. For the Japanese, Nippon Jin is the Japanese. Gaijin is a non-Japanese. American Jin is American. And Neanderthal Jin, I think, is the Neanderthal." And that's the entire explanation, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, except that the guy seems to be obsessed with Japanese.
That makes me hate it so much. That just makes me hate it so much.
Yeah, that makes so much more sense.
It just seems so... What's the word? The word that I want to use, not a word that we should use.
Shit.
So, I'm going to just say douchey. Or, pompous in an arrogant way.
I think that's what we should call it.
Pretentious?
Pretentious, yes.
Exactly. Pretentious and undercurrent of just sleaziness as well. Just the kind of the Neanderthal that never speaks, somehow this attractive 20-something or 30 or 40-something, according to Kim, woman, is supposed to fall in love with him despite him not being able to speak, despite him, being a disgusting slob mess that eats raw chicken.
And all he does is try and grope her.
Yeah. He's quite gropey.
The words that he does say is gum gum, which is sex, right? So she says something to him at the end when they're breaking up. She says something like, "I'm a person, I'm not just your gum gum machine."
Oh, God. I mean...
Which I might use next time I break up with someone.
Okay, here's a science thing, and also another plot dead end. When Armagnac calls the American anthropologist, by the way, who is an anthropologist, but also basically Giorgio Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens.
Yes.
He's on the phone with some UFO guy when Armagnac calls him in the first place.
Yes. Are you talking about the inverted airflow?
Yes, it's what I'm talking about. His assistant is talking to Armagnac on the phone, and he cuts in on his call, and he's like, "I've got this German guy who says he's got a Neanderthal man," and he says, "I've always felt there was an enormous inverted air trap beneath the valley that could support, in a kind of suspended animation, primitive life forms. There's so much to unpack in that sentence." But you don't even need to, because we already know the Neanderthal just got there from the past by magic, so that's not how he survived. So it's just like a total red herring, and not even a misdirection, because we already know that's not how he got there, so why is that even in the movie at all?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's kind of like the Futurama episode.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so maybe we can talk about the similarities of this film to others, because there's a lot of things like that, and I feel like in a lot of cases, this one actually did it first. When did the Futurama episode come out? I guess it was before 2011. So...
No, I don't think it was. I think it was after. I'll quickly Google it.
Well, Ross is Googling one scene, the scene where the maintenance worker ran into his car to get away from the Neanderthal man, and the Neanderthal man jumped on the car, and then it was rocking, and then he ran run out again. That reminded me of Jurassic Park, where Newman gets eaten. I don't know why.
Yes. I think that guy was definitely based on Newman from Jurassic Park. What was his name? Nedry in Jurassic Park.
So the future episode Fun on a Bun, where they go to the Oktoberfest, actually came out in 2012. So
wow.
Yeah.
So this one did it first.
This one did it first.
Except it didn't do it. It just said it first.
But yeah, there's also lots of similarities with William, the first film we ever talked about, with
yes,
the Neanderthal.
And William came out in 2019.
Yeah, the Neanderthal pregnancy at the end as the sort of shock final twist.
Yeah, that's
Neander-Jin did it first.
That's true. I noticed that as well. I mean, there's obviously a lot drawn from Encino Man here, which of course is much earlier.
And much better.
The whole concept, yes. The whole concept that there's one character or one faction that wants to use him for financial gain and celebrity, and then there's the other side that loves him for who he is and cares about him as a person, ostensibly in this one. So I think it drew inspiration from Encino Man and also probably Iceman and any other movie where a Neanderthal comes back to life for some reason.
Yeah. There's some of the sort of similar sensibility to Caveman, that kind of slapstick attempt. The kind of comical names for sex in the Neanderthal language. That's kind of a caveman trope.
And him like groping her and stuff and trying to get it on with her at tea.
There's another thing that this movie does that we haven't touched on yet, is that it just sort of randomly changes styles for no reason. Like at some point it turns into a black and white silent film where the Neanderthal is chasing the romantic lead around and then they fall in love. That whole scene is silent with like piano music. In another scene where Armagnac and his accomplice are fighting, it just turns to sepia tone with like kind of ragtime or honky-tonk kind of music in the background for no reason. And then all the scenes in the mental institution, the color grading is very like sort of green, and it feels like very 90s, some like 90s movies, where there's like really intense saturation, really bright colors, and it's sort of a very surreal kind of feeling to it, like Dutch camera angles and off-putting stuff like that.
Yeah, like a horror movie.
It's just like the style is all over the place.
And then at the end too, so it goes closer to the end when she kind of decides that she has a broken heart. I think it's when he goes back. And so the movie's way of expressing her broken heart is to just do this weird montage of like her in different like images, like one laying down with her eyes closed and then one looking off into the direction with like a different tone. And like it was like a weird 80s movie without the music. It was so
running
strange.
Through a stream. Yeah, it was
running through a stream. Yeah, it was so weird.
We haven't mentioned yet at all is that in the middle of this movie, there is a montage of the Neanderthal being taken in by commercialism with an entire rap song about the Neanderthal Man in like an early 90s, late 80s style rap. It's like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song for like 3 minutes singing about this Neanderthal where he's just like doing a montage going around Hollywood. It's like... And it's all set to a green screen and there's no other characters. It's just the Neanderthal Man in front of a green screen doing random stuff.
Well, at the end, he does have the backup dancers, too. But I feel like the listeners are going to think we're just making this up. Like, there's like this can't actually be a movie that exists.
Well, if you're in Canada or the UK, at least, it's free on YouTube. I saw it on Vimeo. It's all over the place. The directors put it everywhere, so it's not hard to find.
It is in the Philippines.
Yeah. I would advise you not to take any drugs before watching it, though, because...
No. Yeah. It almost feels like you did, though, because you're just like, this has,
I hated it.
I didn't hate it, but only because it kept me interested as a, like, what the bleep am I watching, right? It didn't make my blood boil like 10,000 BC or anything like that. But.
If I could have watched it at 3 times the speed and still been able to understand the language being spoken, then I would have. But
and do you think it would have helped you? Do you think watching it 2 times and listening to it helped you understand the plot?
No, I didn't. but it didn't make it any more, any less understandable. But yeah, it's an hour of my life I'm never getting back.
Yeah, at least it's only an hour and 20 minutes. It's not a long movie.
Oh, thank God. If it was 3
less
hours, I don't
less
think I
if you
could
watch
have
it
done
speeded up.
Yeah. If it was 3 hours, I would have gotten here. I'd have been like, and the end is good. I have no idea. I didn't watch it.
The only positive review I found of this movie, even the only positive review I found said, graciously, it's only an hour and 20 minutes because otherwise it would have overstayed its welcome.
Yeah, if it was 1 minute and 20, I think it overstayed its welcome.
Yeah.
There's one sort of piece of science trivia that I feel like we could get in here. One of the only interesting facts that the movie sort of gets a lot of mileage out of is that Neanderthal is actually a place in Germany. And they sort of, it's not even really a joke, but they say it over and over, like, Neanderthal, it's a place, right? So Neanderthal just means Neander Valley in Germany, which is where the first Neanderthal fossils were found. And that's where the Neanderthal Museum is, and that's apparently where this director grew up. But I don't know if we've ever told the story, which I only read recently in a book, which I don't remember the name of the book. The name Neander Valley, like Neander, doesn't sound like a German word. Do you guys know this story?
Yeah, I know the story.
Like, Neander doesn't sound like a German word, so, like, where did the word Neander come from? Well, apparently there was a guy who used to live in this valley whose name was Joachim Newman, but in the style of, I guess, pretentious Europeans at the time, people would change their names to Latin for some reason, like Carolus Linnaeus was Swedish but has a Latin name, right?
Yeah.
So Joachim Newman, changed his name to the Greek Neandros, Neander. So he took on this Greek name to be what? Ross, why do people change their names like this? Do you know this?
I think, like you say, just that was the kind of fashion, the pretentious. So you've got, the perfectly serviceable von Linné, which is Linnaeus's real name, changed to Linnaeus just to be a bit fancier. And it happens all the way through. I mean, you look at some of the kind of later medieval Renaissance physicians and people like that. They all go in for this, and it's just, I think, from the Renaissance, when people were rediscovering the kind of knowledge of Greek and Roman times through Greek and Latin texts, that they said, I want a part of this. I'll show off my learning by Hellenizing or Latinizing my name.
Huh.
Anyway, I thought it's a really fun coincidence that the Neander Valley is the New Man Valley where the first new man was discovered. That's just a fun little piece of trivia.
It's incredible. It's the cosmic joker at work. I mean, of all the places that you could find the first fossil of a new kind of human, it would be right there in the name.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. It was so weird when the anthropologist randomly professed his love to the woman out of nowhere. Like, I didn't even know they knew each other, and he was like, I loved you since the moment we met.
Which was like 2 seconds ago.
Yeah. And she was like, no, I love Neanderthal Man. And then he said something like, why him? He has a brain of an amoeba. And then he said, he's not even the first human species. Or not even the first human model. And you're like, what? One, that doesn't make sense. Two, how is that? Like, so she's supposed to want to be, like, with the first... I don't know, it doesn't even make sense in
It's not even a cool Australopithecine, or it's not even a cool Homo erectus. Why go...
Or
it doesn't make any
sense.
Like
It's so weird.
I think that must be just bad writing, because he also says there must be a reason they stopped producing them 50,000 years ago. So, like, if we're using the analogy of cars, you don't want the first model of car, you want the latest model of car.
Yeah.
So, like, the writer must have meant he's not even the latest model, like, he's an outdated model, but it's just like the writing is just so bad, it doesn't make any sense.
You would think growing up where it was found in the village with the town with the museum, like, you would at least have picked up a bit more. Just a bit.
Yeah. And it's weird that, a guy who must be in his 60s, this is his first feature film, obviously a labor of love,
They didn't open a book or Google.
Yeah, exactly.
Wikipedia.
Exactly.
I hope they don't listen and we hurt their feelings, but you can do better, is what I would say to them.
Yeah, I don't have anything else useful to say. The Neanderthal is rubbish as well. It's just a guy with some stuff sellotaped to his brow. They give him kind of bad teeth, bad hair. They make him act like how kids act when they're trying to do a monkey impression, and he doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything useful. He doesn't show any signs of Neanderthal culture or understanding or thought. He's just the very worst and earliest kind of stereotypes of Neanderthals as brutish, ugly, stupid, all those kind of things.
Yeah, ape-like. I think it's the worst depiction of a Neanderthal, except for maybe in which one it was. I don't know if it was the one with Ringo, but there was one where it was a claymation dinosaur one, but it was the one that we really enjoyed, the claymation dinosaurs. And they went into some weird cave thing, and there was Neanderthals that were just really bad, but then they were only there for like a second. I think that was the worst, but this one is second to that.
Was that in the Raquel Welch one?
Yes.
1 million years BC.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think this is the worst Neanderthal we've ever seen. Even worse than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Those ones look like monkeys.
Yeah, but this was worse. Just stop trying to make excuses for it, Kim. It's terrible.
I think that the ultimate problem here is that the whole movie is just playing on the slur Neanderthal and not actual Neanderthals, in the sense that you would call someone who is brawny and stupid a Neanderthal. And it's because it's written by an old incel nice guy who's upset that women don't like him. So he's written a story about how women always they say they want a nice guy, but in the end, what they actually end up with is a Neanderthal.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm wondering as well, also, I mean, it's quite strange that obviously it's a German production with German actors and a German director and writer, but it's acted, and the raps are in English as well. So obviously maybe they were going for international reach or whatever, but it also makes you think, perhaps quite a lot of maybe the good stuff is lost in translation. Maybe there's ideas or connections that make sense to a native German speaker that are just not there for an English speaker.
Yes, maybe, but not enough for what was it. Like, there was too many holes and too many weird things for that to be the explanation. That would explain a few things, maybe, but not. I don't know, listeners. I don't know. I think our listeners should watch it just to see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or just for the Neanderthal rap in the middle.
But don't pay for it like Kim did.
No, don't pay for it.
Whatever you do, don't encourage them by giving them money. Whatever you do. I mean, there's almost not a redeeming feature at all. I mean, yes, it's terrible all the way through, but the main character, Barbara, she's pleasant to look at. The acting from the main con artist is okay. The guy that works for the water company that ends up in the psych ward, his acting is okay, but yeah, there's very, very little to actually redeem. I just hope all the actors got paid well.
I mean, she was pretty, but she was so pouty the whole time that it was also hard to like. It was hard to like her character.
Yeah, her character wasn't nice at all. It was like she starts off just being quite aggressively holier than thou to her friend, friend who disappears halfway through the film and has no input to the plot at all. But yeah, I think this is possibly the worst film I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's up there with the weirdest. It's definitely one of the weirdest.
I'm really struggling to think of any that could have been worse. No, can't.
It was. I would say like almost every scene had a line or two where you were just like, "There's no point in saying that," and that was horrible.
Or just what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, that was my face all the way through. It's just like, what?
I know. What?
Yeah. And I think it says a lot that the only thing that Josh found amusing was the chicken murder. I mean, when the highlight of your film is somebody murdering a chicken, then it really does not have a lot to recommend it.
No. I enjoyed the rap a little bit. I thought it was funny.
The rap.
It was absurd.
There's another scene after she falls in love with the Neanderthal and she's talking to her father and he asks her, like, do you have something to tell me? And she denies it. He's like, do you think I'm blind? The trash is full of adult diapers and banana peels.
I missed that line.
I thought that was funny.
But you never see him in an adult nappy, so again, or eating a banana, so it makes absolutely no sense.
And why would...
Yeah, he only eats gummy bears. He doesn't eat bananas at all. And raw chickens.
Yeah, because the neighbor got mad at him for throwing banana peels in the backyard. And she, when she showed the guys, she was like, I have photographs of them having sex in a photo album, right? So it wasn't even like in her camera or anything. She had them printed out and put in a photo album and showed them. And then she said something like, he loves chocolate-covered bananas. I was like, what is in those photos?
You can understand why she was so quick to print them out. Jesus.
Yeah, that's true. But she should be arrested for taking photos, pornographic photos of her neighbors.
No, it's just fractally weird that any scene, the further you kind of delve into it, the more weird it gets.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I feel like the more we've talked about it, the less I understand
it. Yeah, same.
Because as you're watching it, you can kind of forget the last scene because you're just like, okay, well, that didn't make sense. You're just trying to keep up with it, so you forget it. And then now that we're talking about it, you're like, yeah, what was that? Okay, so Josh has lost his movie choosing privileges for at least 2 episodes, I think.
Absolutely, I think, and he's very lucky to get away with just that.
If you've been enjoying Screens of the Stone Age, get in touch with us. Follow us on Twitter at SOTSA_podcast and on Facebook at SOTSA podcast, or send us an email to screensofthestonage@gmail.com. Screens of the Stone Age is supported by the Paleoanthropological Society of Canada. Find out more at pasc-scpa.ca. We forgot to mention that in the end, they almost arrested the Neanderthal for tax evasion.